The Power Interest Grid. The Power Interest Grid is a tool that can be used to identify stakeholders in a project. The Power Interest Grid is based on the principle that stakeholders' interests and power can be used to identify their level of influence on the project. Here are the steps that can be followed to identify stakeholders using the Power Interest Grid. 1. Define the project. Start by defining the scope of the project and its objectives. This will help to identify the key stakeholders who are likely to be involved in the project. 2. Identify stakeholders. Review project documents and conduct stakeholder analysis to identify potential stakeholders. Use the Power Interest Grid to identify the stakeholders who are likely to have a high level of influence on the project. 3. Determine stakeholders' interests. Determine the interests of each stakeholder by conducting interviews, focus groups, or surveys. Identify the stakeholders' needs, expectations, and concerns related to the project. 4. Determine stakeholders' level of power. Determine the level of power that each stakeholder has in relation to the project. This can be based on factors such as their position, resources, and influence over other stakeholders. 5. Determine stakeholders' level of interest. Determine the level of interest that each stakeholder has in the project. This can be based on factors such as their personal or professional goals and their motivations for supporting the project. 6. Document stakeholder information. Document the information gathered during the Power Interest Grid in a stakeholder register. This should include the stakeholder's name, role, interest in the project, level of power, level of interest, and communication preferences. In conclusion, the Power Interest Grid is a useful tool for identifying stakeholders in a project. By following these steps, project managers can identify stakeholders who are likely to have a high level of influence on the project, determine their interests and power, and develop strategies to engage and manage them effectively.